Hey all, my name is Toves and I'm back playing some more Planet Zoo, and welcome back to Tiguidou Zoo. So this is one we've come back to. A couple of weeks ago we were completing the Penguin Point. You guys seem to enjoy that one. We've had a couple of weeks where we've been in Africa in our Zimba, our African zoo, and now we're back working on this one. This is definitely my favourite project, although Zimba's getting there, I have to say. I'm quite enjoying that one. So as you see from the titles and the thumbnails, we're finally working on the gift shop. Those of you that have hung around for a while will have seen me build this a long time ago. It finally gets some love and attention. This is what it's been sat like for a long time, just a big empty shell. Built this one quite a long time ago, as I said. I quite enjoyed building it at the time, and I was just kind of waiting and hoping and secretly praying that at some point Frontier would give us the pieces and the abilities to make proper functioning gift shops, and they have done. They've had those out for a while, but you know me, it's finally taken me a while to catch up. So yeah, this is a good one. Stay tuned, lots to see as ever. I will join you any second now and meet you over in the speed build. Right, peeps, so first things first, we need to get this in. So what I was trying to do at the time, you can see me sort of placing this further back and leaving a gap for the path to come in. So if you can see that little, where the guests actually come in is right by the entrance here. But what I ended up trying to do is I ended up trying to incorporate the stairs into this, because I wanted, my building has got 2 floors, right? So I was really keen to be able to have guests come in and choose whether they wanted to go to the ground floor or the first floor. So my plan was to originally to have them come in the door, look like they're in the gift shop, but not technically actually in the gift shop yet, go up the stairs or go into this ground floor. Because you can't add 2 floors to your gift shop, technically they have to be independent ones. So I do kind of manage that. By the end of this, there are 2 floors that work, but guests don't walk between the 2 of them. I might at some point revisit this and see if I can change that, but for now it's 2 independent floors with different ways of accessing it. So I wanted to create this sort of till area. So this door, actually that double door leads into a backstage bit, actually is the backstage of the Timberwolves. But yeah, I wanted to create this kind of till area for the guests and for the staff members. Yeah, these are supposed to just be kind of like extra storage where they've got more stock and that sort of thing. Really, just this is all about just like separating this off, but giving them a bit of a focal point. I think they've done a really, really amazing job with these gift shop pieces. If you haven't used them yet, I would really thoroughly recommend them, because they've done the perfect combination of allowing you the flexibility to change it however you want to, but also kind of customize it yourself by adding your own non-functional decorative pieces like extra plushies and that sort of thing. So I really was keen to make this kind of look quite playful. Chose this palette, chose that what is that? I guess that's like a mural thing in the background. Incorporated some of the big, that's actually the big Australian sign. I think that's the big wooden map of Australia that we've had for a long time, since the Australia DLC, that actually I think works quite well in here. I did have a few things that I have previously used for gift shops. So back when I worked on Missoula Zoo ages ago, I had built a gift shop in that, and that's probably part of the reason why I held off building in this one for ages, because, well, as I said, I wanted to make sure that there was pieces available. So these are actually some of the custom pieces. These are supposed to be sort of like sculptural bits and things. They're like little label and some price tags and stuff. The actual using sort of put my center points in, my islands and all that sort of thing. Wanted to kind of have these be able to be original enough, actually distinctive enough. So one of the things you can do is you can overlap them. So obviously one of the troubles you get is if you use these pre-built pieces from the game, from the base game, you'll end up with sort of very similar gift shops in all sorts of different zoos. So by just sort of overlapping some of these, and actually look, if you look, that works quite well as an overlap. Doesn't really look too much like it's overlapping. It looks like it's kind of actually meant to be. So I wanted this sort of central island, putting some plushies on it, putting some more of the gifts on. And then amazingly, it's so amazing how all this works. I mean, you'll see when we do the cinematics at the end, but watching guests actually interact with these and sort of looking and standing, obviously they don't like pick things up. That would have been like even more amazing if they actually picked things up and interact with it, and maybe even took it to the till. But they don't really do that. So yeah, another little custom area. One of the advantages of actually Tiguidou, I think I've talked about this in the past, Tiguidou is all built on a hill, which is mostly a pain, but does actually have sometimes its sort of advantages. So it lets you kind of hide things into the terrain quite a lot. So you've just seen me I'm creating this extra custom display area, and I'm just kind of burying a bunch of stuff behind into the hill. I used some custom billboards here because I actually wanted some sort of playful textures and some interesting colourful designs. Obviously Tiguidou is set in the countryside, so tartan was sort of something I chose, or this sort of gig and pattern was something I chose. I thought it looked quite cool against the rest of the detail. And then, as I said, because you've got the ability to be able to place your own specific gifts and items and stuff, obviously non-functional, that allows you to make your own display areas. So here's a whole bit where I've just added in another layer in front of that custom texture there, which I used a billboard to achieve. So it looks like a wallpaper. Added some glass shelving, and then a custom shelf below, and then I'm just filling these shelves up with cool little details and things. Again, back over to this area. You can see actually there on the left, I've put a lift in so that top floor is accessible as well. And then I thought these all actually fit in quite well into this because they're all sort of statues. They're all sort of small enough for you to be able to purchase. So even though they're not actually gifts, they kind of work out okay in here. These balloons are, again, pretty cool. You can see that we've got like a little screen there as well, just to sort of separate off that till area from the guest bits. And then there's a rug on the floor. So I've used the mural. So as I said, what I ended up doing was having the whole shop slightly set into the building. So there's a bit of a gap between actually the door and then where the shop technically starts. So the thing that kind of spawns the guest is like a little black doormat that spawns the guests, or that they enter through, is hidden under that rug. So technically they enter the building but don't enter the gift shop when they do that. Putting some lights in, so it's actually quite shady, kind of dark area of the zoo because it's kind of slightly set into the slope and all that sort of thing. So bunch of custom lights, both for spotlighting the items, but also just to add a bit more detail and things, decoration. So you can see actually in those custom lights, I've got both a combination of the bulbs, but hidden in the floor is a spotlight as well, because you don't get enough brightness out of the bulbs, but I don't like the look of the spotlights. So yeah, it just kind of ends up being a combination of the two. So upstairs now, and actually you can see if you noted it very carefully, actually from the empty shell that we had at the beginning, there was no doorway into this section. You had to come up the stairs, but because of what I said about they're kind of two separate floors here, so I ended up I thought it made sense that you had both the option to come in the zoo, but also go straight into the gift shop, but also be able to exit through the upper floor. So the idea is that most people will come from that lower level, because usually you go to the gift shop when you're leaving the zoo, right? So you'll go through the lower level, come up the stairs or up the lift, and then leave through this top floor. And then I was thinking about how I could make this top floor kind of distinct and different. And I thought, well, there's all the t-shirts and stuff. So the bottom floor ends up really being about gifts. So plushies and the statues and those sorts of smaller gifts. And then this all ends up being about clothing. So what do you need when you're doing clothing? I mean, you don't really need this, but these are some changing rooms. So I thought I'd build my own changing rooms. If you haven't used these new wallpaper planks before, they are really handy for stuff like this, because you can make one of them, you can make completely unpatterned. So you can see I've created my own little custom pattern, solid color there. And that allows me to put in, create these really sort of thin structures. Nothing else is as thin as that in the game. So none of the wood pieces or anything is quite as thin as that. So it's a really good piece to use to kind of create these kind of small, small cupboards and that sort of things. I've been using them more and more recently. So what we're getting here is obviously a couple of little changing booths. So create one. That's generally a good tip for Planet Zoo. Is always just create your first one. Bear in mind that you might copy it into another position. So these should, once I've finished creating my curtains, went through a few different ideas about the best way to do that. So actually ended up using some of this cloth again. Used the one that you can just completely make the colour solid and not varied, and then what I ended up needing to do is then copy it from one booth into another. So you end up with multiple curtains hanging, multiple changing rooms. So just making it look like it's all kind of ruffled up there, like it's the curtains closed, and then you can see the little hoops kind of holding it on the top bar and all that sort of stuff. I think I played around with this idea of this extra bit here for a while, but decided I didn't really need it. Just trying to make these all look a little bit more like they're sort of rucked up cloth. And now I've got one single one finished. Just put put some clothes in there, just like they've been left by a guest who's tried them on. I think that's pretty much means I've got one done. I think I end up moving this around a little bit, giving it a little bit more structural support because it did look a little bit flimsy. So then I'm getting this into a place. Hold on one second. Let's see me do this. Hopefully I do it. Hopefully I think just giving this a bit more structural support. And then obviously we're going to end up with more than one. So there we go. More than one cubicle. And I think we get 3 in the end. Bit more of that trim behind. It's not the cleanest of builds, this one, but actually ends up working pretty well. Needs a little bit of fiddling with it. And then I've obviously got some bits overhanging that I need to hide away. Could have done that probably before I'd copied it over, just to make it all a bit neater. And then obviously there's like a little bench for people to sit down in inside. Decided it actually didn't need to go full length. Probably looked more like a changing room if it had that little bit of a gap at the bottom. Copied the curtains over. And then one of the things I always try and make sure I do when I do stuff like this, and it's going to be a tip that I'm talking about in a building tips video that I'm finally working on, is to break up patterns. So if you had all 3 of those curtains in real life, they would not look exactly the same. They'd be slightly different positions. One would be slightly more open. The ruffles would be in a slightly different position, if you know what I mean. So it's important to just add that extra little bit of realism. Some people don't care about, but I definitely do. It's just to make them slightly more inconsistent, so it looks more realistic, if that makes sense. Hopefully that made sense. So yeah, you've got one that's slightly more closed. The middle one's more open. The opposite way around. The middle one's more closed and the other 2 are open. And added the like tote bags and stuff. And as I said at the time when I was doing this build, my intention was to try and get both floors accessible. The trouble is it doesn't quite work as logical as this, because I think what I realised at this stage is that if you think about it, how this would have to work would be that there would have to be, they're entering that top floor from either from downstairs or from the door. And if you don't have that being the case, then everybody would either come in through the door or go back down the stairs when they've finished, if that makes sense. And the only way you can do that is by having 2 entrances into the shop. So it's a sort of a tiny little bit of a thing that I would have been a really cool way of making these slightly better, is to just have that shop entrance bit be modular. So obviously we've got the kind of main module of the shop as something that's placeable, but if we'd been able to place multiple entrances or multiple spawn points, then you could have created 2 floors, or you could have 2 doors, or you could have, just that extra little bit. And it's one of those things, I think, Frontier do such an amazing job, but the player is always going to find another thing. It's probably really frustrating for a developer at Frontier, but it's always going to be another thing we kind of want. We're like, oh, if only they did this. So that's not me at all complaining. I think they've done such a good job with these. Some posters. So last thing really that I've got left to add, really, I think, is this little poster set. So the way I've seen these and when I've seen posters in shops before is that usually there's some up that like on a display. So I've got some on the back wall there, and then there's like a sort of thing that you flip between, which is what I'm creating here. So it's almost like a kind of hanging rail that's got all of the posters up, and you can sort of open and close. You'll see this will make sense in a second when I actually put the other layers in it. So it's like you can kind of open and close to view, almost like you're leafing through a book of posters, if that makes sense. So that's kind of what this is. Obviously it doesn't work. Obviously it's all implied. Obviously it's not really something that the guests will go anywhere near. But it's one of those things that gives me great pleasure, and clutter is my absolute go-to, really. So we're pretty much coming to the end of this. There will be a few cinematics and stuff at the end, but as ever, guys, if you've enjoyed this one, please don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm putting a real effort in at the moment to getting more videos done, and hopefully you're enjoying that. And I will leave you with a few cinematics. Not sure what we're doing next. I think probably another Tiguidou episode. But thank you very much for watching. My name is Toves. Do stay to the end to see the cinematics, and I will catch you on the next one. Take it easy.